Welcome to the Chronological Bible Journey, where we discover God's whole story one day at a time. I'm Michael. I'm here with Ben today, and we are your guides as we discuss Proverbs 8 through 10. It is day 149. Ben, let's get into this.
All right. Thank you, Michael. It is a joy to be here with you today. We're still continuing through the Proverbs, which I love. It's awesome to see just how different aspects of our lives are touched every day as we read through the Proverbs. What we see in today's reading, starting out in Proverbs chapter 8, is we see wisdom personified again. Earlier in the previous weeks, we have talked about the personification of wisdom, and we just learned a lot today about wisdom, and I'm just going to kind of walk through some of that and see where the Lord leads us. First thing that I want to point out is that wisdom calls out to all people so that they may respond and experience the blessing of wisdom. Listen to what Proverbs 8, 1 through 4, it says, "Listen as wisdom calls out. Hear as understanding raises her voice. On the hilltop along the road, she takes her stand at the crossroads. By the gates at the entrance on the town, on the road leading in, she cries aloud, I call to you, to all of you, I raise my voice to all the people." What I love about this, Michael, is the reality that wisdom is calling out to all people. It is not reserved for a special few, but for everyone.
Yeah, we don't even have to dig very far or search in the darkness. Like, she is calling out to us proactively.
Right. She wants to be found. If you think somebody that's lost, they are screaming because they want to be found. And I just imagine that wisdom, wanting to be found by all people, is calling out like that to us today. Secondly, what I love is we see that anyone who answers the call of wisdom and searches for it will find it. Proverbs 8:17 says, I love all who love me. This is wisdom speaking again. Those who search will surely find me. That reminds me of a verse from the New Testament, James chapter 1, verse 5, I believe. It says, if any of you lack wisdom, ask of God, and he will give it to you freely. Or one translation says liberally. He will give it all to you. And I love that.
Yeah, he doesn't resent that we ask him for wisdom.
Yep. And so my question for us today is, are we searching for wisdom? Are we trying to find wisdom? Obviously, wisdom wants to be found. Are we actively pursuing after wisdom? The third aspect of wisdom that comes from our passage today is wisdom flows out of the character and nature of God. True wisdom comes from God. There's earthly wisdom that may be good for getting along in this world, but it is not that true, precious wisdom that comes from God. Michael, do me a favor. Read Proverbs chapter 8, verses 22 through 31.
The Lord formed me from the beginning, before he created anything else. I was appointed in ages past at the very first, before the earth began. I was born before the oceans were created, before the springs bubbled forth their waters, before the mountains were formed, before the hills I was born, before he had made the earth and fields and the first handfuls of soil. I was there when he established the heavens, when he drew the horizon on the oceans. I was there when he set the clouds above, when he established springs deep in the earth. I was there when he set the limits of the seas so they would not spread beyond their boundaries. And when he marked off the earth's foundation, I was the architect at his side. I was his constant delight, rejoicing always in his presence. And how happy I was with the world he created, how I rejoiced with the human family.
I love that. And every time that you see you have to remember this is wisdom personified. So this is wisdom speaking. So wisdom flows out of the heart and the nature of God. And I want to camp out here for just a moment because I think this is important. When I say that wisdom flows out of the nature of God, we begin to step into some theological waters, and I believe it's important for us to understand it. Theologians agree that wisdom is an attribute of God. Now, an attribute is a word that we use to just talk about the quality, character, or characteristic ascribed to God. Now, we can do other things. We can have attributes describing other things, but when we talk about in theology, an attribute of God, it is describing the quality and character of God. Now, this is the language that we use and that we want to begin to to truly understand who God is. Tozer, A.W. Tozer, said that when we think about God, what we think is the most important thing about us. It is important for us to think deeply about God. Now, attributes are how we can describe or begin to understand who God is. There's two categories of attributes, Michael. There's communicable and incommunicable. Now, I didn't just sneeze.
You're going to tell us what those mean, Ben?
I didn't just sneeze. those are two words that when we're talking about God, we distinguish the attributes between those two types. Communicable, the base word there is communicate. So if it is a communicable attribute, it is an attribute, a characteristic that humanity can share with God. For example, God is love. That's an attribute of God. Because God is love and it's a communicable attribute, we are able to share and experience love, not as perfectly as God because we're not God, but we can still enjoy that aspect of God. An incommunicable attribute is something that we cannot share, that we cannot experience because we're not God. An example of that would be eternity. God has always been, and he will always be. We are not. We had a moment in time where we were created, so we cannot share that characteristic, that attribute of God. So when you start hearing and learning about attributes of God, put them into those two categories, and you begin to learn who God is through that type of study. Now, when we talk about wisdom specifically, wisdom is a communicable attribute. That means that we can share that, we can experience it with God.
And we can grow in that area as well.
That's exactly right. And that's really what the Proverbs are. Imagine the wisdom of God being communicated through the writer of Proverbs to us who have the beautiful gift of God's word. So when we read these Proverbs, we are reading and experiencing the wisdom of God. Now, one theologian explains God's wisdom this way. He says that God's wisdom means that God always chooses the highest and best goals and the highest and best means to those goals. This definition goes beyond the idea of God knowing all things and specifies God's decisions about what he will do are always wise decisions. That is, they will always bring about the best results from God's ultimate perspective, and they will bring about those results through the best means possible. When we talk about God's wisdom, we are learning about God's best, and he is there every step of the way, and we can experience that type of wisdom if we follow what God is writing in Proverbs. Think about that.
Yeah.
God's wisdom is in Proverbs, so what we're experiencing is the reality on how we can achieve God's best and highest goals for our life by following these highest and best means that he's provided for us in Proverbs.
And he puts it all together so packed tightly that sometimes you have to camp out to really catch some of that wisdom.
That's exactly right. And I think it's just critical for us to begin to understand that as we read God's word this year, we are learning who God is. We are beginning to think properly about God. And I wholeheartedly believe that a lot of the issues that we have today in our world is because we have an improper view of God. And what we've learned today in today's passage is that God is wise. He has a wisdom that we should follow. If you continue in your reading, you begin to learn that when you follow wisdom, God's prescribed wisdom, it comes with abundant life. There are blessings that flow out of God's wisdom. The author of Proverbs also in this text that we read today gives us a test on whether or not you are wise. Verses 8 through 10 says, in chapter 9 says, "Don't bother correcting mockers, they only hate you, but correct the wise and they will love you. Instruct the wise and they will be even wiser. Teach the righteous and they will learn even more." So Michael, here's a test for you. Are you wise? Do you like it when you are corrected?
It often depends on who the person is, Ben. I will be honest on that one, right?
And how they do it, right?
Yes.
Do you lean towards instruction? Because if you want to be instructed, if you want to learn, that means that you are a wise person. It says, teach the righteous, and they will learn even more. So as we are using God's word as a mirror to see who we are, we can begin to say, am I wise? Do I get offended when I'm corrected in love in the proper way?
Yeah.
Am I seeking further instruction every day of my life? Do I want to be taught the righteous ways of God? And if the answer to no is no to any of those questions, more than likely that God would, the scriptures would call you unwise. And so that's kind of where we end up today. And so it's just amazing to see the importance of God's wisdom.
I love the reminder as we're getting close to the middle of the Bible here, that we are reminded that God is wise.
Mm-hmm.
The embodiment of wisdom
Mm-hmm.
we can find in Him and His presence.
Amen.
Thank you, Ben. Hey, this has been another great day on the Chronological Bible Journey. And if you know someone who needs to join us on this journey, please click on Share Episode and send it to them so that they can continue throughout our journey through the Bible as we go day by day chronologically. Hey, thanks for being here, and we will see you again tomorrow.